Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You've handed us quite a stack this week, and it really captures a strange moment, doesn't it? Public health warnings meeting, well, outright at cultural defiance.
It really does. It's a fascinating collision.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
We're diving into this clash between a serious emerging threat, H5N1 bird flu, showing up in dairy cattle, which is worrying,
Yeah.
and what our sources are calling the raw milk rebellion.
Right.
And our goal today, our mission, it isn't just to lay out the science warnings, it's really to dig into why. Why are people actively pushing back against official advice, treating this almost like a cultural stand?
Absolutely. And we have to start with the science because the warnings themselves are, well, they're stark. The CDC, the FDA, they're very clear on this.
That usually are with food safety.
Exactly. Raw, unpasteurized milk. It's consistently flagged as one of the riskiest foods out there, period.
Okay.
And now the concern is way higher because H5N1, it's been found in really high levels in milk from cows that are infected. So this isn't some theoretical thing. It feels very real, very immediate.
Right, a tangible threat.
Yeah.
So let's nail down that core evidence. High concentrations in the milk, we know that. But what's the detail that really drives home the potential danger here?
Well, what's crucial, I think, is the specific research that came out after the initial dairy outbreaks were confirmed.
Okay.
Back in March 2025, new studies basically confirmed something really important, that 60-day aging process. The one sometimes used to make certain raw milk cheeses legally okay.
Yeah, I've heard of that. A kind of loophole almost.
Sort of, or at least a process thought to mitigate risk. But this new research, it showed definitively that for this virus, H5N1, 60 days is not enough to kill it.
Wow. So that argument is just gone.
Pretty much. The viral genome was still detectable. It just negates what many raw milk proponents pointed to as a safety measure.
Okay.
So the official message, based on clear data, is really simple. Pasteurization is the only proven way to make this milk safe. Don't drink it raw.
That feels incredibly straightforward from a scientific standpoint.
Yeah.
The evidence is strong, the message is clear, which leads us right to the big puzzle here.
Exactly.
Despite these really clear, you could say non-negotiable warnings, our sources are showing raw milk sales have actually spiked, like by as much as 65% in some areas since this H5N1 news hit.
It defies logic, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. But I have to ask, is that spike purely defiance? Or are we maybe seeing, longtime raw milk fans just kind of using this news, maybe seizing a cultural moment to push their agenda?
Political theater. That's a really interesting behavioral question. And sure, some of it is probably the existing community rallying, but the deeper thing our sources point to, this isn't about people not knowing the risks.
Right.
It's information rejection. We're seeing people online, on forums, social media. They're actively sharing the CDC warnings, like quoting them directly.
And then immediately mocking them, turning it into a joke or painting it as fear-mongering. It's deliberate. It feels conscious, almost performative. So they're acknowledging the official source, but dismissing its authority.
Precisely. You see comments saying the virus is, just a cover-up by industrial ag, or that the warnings are only there to protect, quote, big ag.
Okay, let's pause there. Big ag. We should probably clarify what that term means for listeners who might not be deep in this particular debate.
Good point. Big ag is basically shorthand. It refers to that large-scale, consolidated industrial food system. The few massive corporations that really dominate farming, processing, distribution.
Got it.
So for many of these consumers, a warning from the FDA or CDC, it isn't seen as neutral safety advice. It's viewed as propaganda defending this corporate structure they already distrust deeply.
Which really highlights that shift you mentioned. It stops being purely about the science, about pathogens.
That's correct.
And becomes about who you trust, about the system itself. And we should probably quickly mention, even before H5N1, raw milk wasn't exactly risk-free.
Oh, absolutely not. History shows that very clearly. Unpasteurized dairy has a long track record of carrying nasty stuff. Campylobacter, E. coli, salmonella, hundreds of documented illnesses, outbreaks over the years.
So H5N1 is just the latest addition to that list.
The newest and maybe the highest profile addition to an already known list of hazards, yes. Yeah. But, looking beyond the specific germs, This widespread defiance, this rejection of the warnings, it points to something much bigger.
Okay.
This trend isn't really about someone misreading a scientific study. It feels much more rooted in a deep systemic breakdown, a loss of trust between the public, or at least segments of the public, and official health authorities.
And that is where just telling people, hey, trust the science, completely falls apart.
It does. It misses the point entirely.
You can't just demand trust if the system you represent has, historically failed or even harmed the very people you're now trying to warn. Understanding this rebellion means understanding that history.
Yeah.
That deep skepticism.
Absolutely. Which brings up the vital question. Why is the mistrust so deep? Why does it persist? It's not just a few bad experiences. It feels systemic.
So what are the roots?
Well, look at specific historical turning points. Take the Flexner Report, way back in the early 20th century. It overhauled American medical schools.
Right, standardized things.
It did standardize things, yes. But in doing so, it also drastically cut the number of medical schools, and disproportionately. It shut down schools that served marginalized groups, like many historically black colleges and women's medical colleges.
So standardization also meant consolidation of power and less diversity.
Exactly. It baked in a concentration of power and reduced access and representation in ways that created immediate and very long-lasting distrust among certain communities. That history matters.
It casts a long shadow.
Yeah.
So official pronouncements today are viewed through that lens of past exclusion or harm, not just as neutral SACI info.
Precisely. And then you layer onto that other things like documented medical racism, awful examples like the Tuskegee study or the unauthorized use of Henrietta Lacks cells.
These aren't just abstract complaints.
No, they're concrete examples where official bodies, institutions abused power and violated trust, often targeting minority or poor communities. So when people have actual evidence that the system failed them, or worse, exploited them,
then a new warning from that same system just hits differently.
it can instantly sound like control or like another lie, another cover-up. The trust isn't there to begin with.
And the really dangerous consequence of that broken trust is, well, it makes people vulnerable, right?
It's extremely vulnerable.
Vulnerable to counter-narratives.
Yeah.
Because if you deeply distrust the mainstream message, you start looking for alternatives. And that's where dangerous ideas can slip in.
Like the completely baseless idea circulating now that drinking raw milk somehow boosts your immunity to bird flu or other things.
Which has zero scientific backing.
None whatsoever. But people grasp onto it because they're looking for some path, any path that feels like it comes from outside the system they distrust. The credible path feels tainted to them.
It's a terrible irony. In trying to reject a system they see as harmful, they embrace something potentially much more dangerous.
It really underscores how public health communication isn't just about having the facts right. It's maybe even more about the perceived trustworthiness of the source, the messenger.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this raw milk rebellion, it's about so much more than milk, isn't it? It's like a referendum on institutional integrity.
On who we trust and why.
Exactly. And it highlights just how incredibly difficult it is to try and heal that broken relationship, especially when people's actual health is on the line.
So thinking about the organizations, the agencies issuing these warnings, what does this mean for them? Our sources seem to suggest the real question isn't how do we make the warning clearer?
No, that misses the core problem.
The question is more like how do we actually rebuild trust? It seems the focus has to shift, like fundamentally, away from just demanding people listen towards what? Real systemic repair, accountability.
It has to be. It requires a genuine change in how these institutions behave, not just a better PR strategy.
Right.
Knowledge is powerful when it's understood and applied. But this deep dive really shows that thinking critically about the source of information, the track record of who's telling you something, their history, their relationship with the public, is just as vital as the scientific facts themselves.
That seems to be the central challenge for public health right now, especially in such a polarized time.
I think so.
Wow. That really synthesizes the deep forces at work here. This isn't just some quirky health trend. It's a complex social movement with real historical roots. And it seems critical to understand it fully, not just write people off as, misinformed.
Couldn't agree more. Dismissal solves nothing here.
Well, thank you for sharing your source material with us. Thanks to you out there for joining this deep dive.
And maybe here's something to chew on this week. Given that we're seeing this defiance really stems from deep historical failures, things like the systemic issues raised by the Flexner Report's impact, Or those painful examples of medical racism was one specific, visible, immediate action a major health institution, say like the CDC, could take today. An action that would clearly signal to the public, especially skeptics and marginalized communities, that things have fundamentally changed in their relationship. What's that crucial first step to actually start rebuilding trust? We'll leave you with that thought.